Hello and welcome to the second session of Legal Aid Society's Research Dialogue series. The Research Dialogue series is an initiative to have open and meaningful conversations on LAS's extensive research activities, mapping a diverse set of issues across the criminal justice system, human rights, and the legal empowerment of marginalized communities. The theme of today's session is Children in Conflict with Law, based on a groundbreaking paper by Jawzia Zaman. We will be conversing on various legal policy and social aspects of a range of issues, including juvenile justice, triggers of delinquency, and child welfare in Pakistan. So in this dialogue, I am joined by Jawzia Zaman, who currently oversees research at Legal Aid Society across diverse projects on religious minorities, gender-based violence, juvenile justice, and police curriculum reform. Her experience includes policy advocacy and research on issues of prison and criminal justice reform with an emphasis on juvenile justice. Secondly, we have Valerie Khan, who is a child protection, child justice, and gender-based violence expert with 14 years of professional experience and human rights-based development. She has extensive experience in processes relating to protection, rehabilitation, and reintegration of children vulnerable to violence. She is the executive director of a Pakistani child rights organization, Group Development Pakistan, and is also a trustee of Child Rights Coalition Asia. We also have Barrister Zahra Viani, who is a litigator with broad experience in many different areas and sectors, including civil matters, criminal matters, and family matters, and a cohort of others. She is a senior partner at Malkani and Viani, with a focus practice on women and children issues. She is also a technical advisor and subject matter specialist in the Provincial Parliamentary Advisory Committee for Child Abuse. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this conversation. So I'll start with Jawzia. Jawzia, if you can just give me a brief overview and background of your work in this paper, and what's the framework that we are dealing with before we talk about more substantive issues.
Thank you so much, Umar, for that introduction. I'm really delighted to be here with two experts in the field, and I'm really looking forward to learning from them as well through the course of this conversation. I want to sort of just jump right into talking a little bit about the report and laying out the findings of the report. सबसे पहले तो मैं थोड़ा report का background देना चाहती हूँ, which is कि basically 2018 में पाकिस्तान ने जुवेनाइल जस्टिस सिस्टम एक्ट जो JJSA कहलाता है पास किया. ये एक वफाकी कानून है, बट ये हमारे सब सूबों पे अप्लाई करता है और हर सूबे को इस पे अपने अपने रूल्स बनाने हैं. और इसका जो रूल मेकिंग स्टेटस है, it varies right now based on each province, and that's possibly something we could talk about later as well. ये जो कानून है, इसका मकसद बेसिकली ये है इसके हम बच्चों के लिए एक अलहदा निज़ाम इंसाफ बनाएं, जिसका फोकस सज़ा नहीं बल्कि इस्लाह है. The reason for this focus from punitive action to rehabilitation, I think, is fairly obvious. It is now internationally recognized across jurisdictions कि बच्चे और नौजवान ज़हनी और नफ्सियाती तौर पे vulnerable होते हैं. उनके दिमाग शायद इतने फिक्स नहीं है जैसे बड़ों के होते हैं, और इस्लाह तब्दीली की काफ़ी गुंजाइश होती है. And so the essential point of the act is कि अगर आप बच्चे को जेल में डाल देंगे तो जेल का माहौल is not one जहाँ बच्चे की इस्लाह हो सकती है. अच्छा, तो ये एक्ट 2018 में पास हुआ, बट वी नोटिस्ड कि जुवेनाइल से मुतालिक कोई एज सच एग्जिस्टिंग डेटा हमें नहीं मिली सिंध में. एंड आई थिंक the absence of reliable data is sort of a very common complaint amongst those of us who work in this sector. So we decided to kind of go about addressing that gap. हमारे इस पेपर में रिसर्च का मकसद बहुत ही सिंपल था, which was कि we wanted to understand कि कराची में जो मुल्ज़िम बच्चे हैं उन्होंने किस नौयत के जुर्म किए हैं, या अल्टरनेटिवली किन जुर्म के इल्ज़ाम पे उन्हें गिरफ्तार किया गया है, उनके माशी और मुआशरती हालात क्या हैं, घर के हालात क्या हैं, वालिदैन और फैमिली के साथ उनके रिश्ते क्या हैं, कैसे हैं, are they good, are they bad, स्कूल जाते हैं, जॉब्स करते हैं, etc. etc. Essentially a social and economic mapping of the population. to understand कि जिन बच्चों को हम जेल में डाल रहे हैं, who are they and where are they coming from. हमारी मेथडोलॉजी कुछ ऐसी थी कि हमारी टीम ने एक क्वांटिटेटिव सर्वे किया with the total juvenile population in Karachi at the time, which was 149 children, the majority of whom I would say were between the ages of 16 and 18. A small point here is कि कराची में 2 बच्चों की facilities हैं, the YOIS, which is the Youthful Offenders Industrial School, जहाँ 16 से 18 साल के बच्चों को रखा जाता है, and then उसके अलावा there is a remand home where basically 16 से कम के जो बच्चे हैं they are kept in the remand home. तो हमने एक तो quantitative survey किया, and that was then followed up by a shorter qualitative interview with a sample of the children and their parents in cases where we were able to access them. हमें quite quickly अंदाजा हुआ कि वालिदैन से मुलाकात करना उनका access काफ़ी मुश्किल होगा, so we decided कि what we would do is कि वो court के cases में, जब अपने बच्चों के court cases में वो आते थे, तो at that time we would try to talk to them. We realized also in the process of doing this you know, a lot of families and parents were not showing up for the children's hearings, which in itself was an interesting finding that led to further questions कि आपकी family dynamics शायद इतनी अच्छी नहीं है, and that could be a reason you know, why parents were repeatedly not showing up for children's hearings, or alternatively कि उनके constraints or demands on their time were such कि they were not able to be there to support the kid. अब मैं आपको थोड़ा फाइंडिंग्स के बारे में बताती हूँ एक बहुत मुख्तसर तरीके में. Crimes के हवाले से we found कि the vast majority of children were arrested for crimes against property rather than crimes against people. ये हमारी criminal law में एक बहुत basic distinction है. 2 broad categories of crimes होती हैं, अमलाक के खिलाफ जुराइम, लोगों के खिलाफ, इंसान के खिलाफ जुराइम. दीगर ममालिक की जुवेनाइल पॉपुलेशंस में भी ये ट्रेंड हमने देखा है कि अमूमन बच्चे जो होते हैं वो प्रॉपर्टी क्राइम्स में मुलव्वस होते हैं rather than crimes involving you know, extreme acts of violence such as murder, rape, etc. जो हमारे jurisdiction में heinous crimes कहलाते हैं. The juveniles that we surveyed were largely picked up for crimes of robbery, dacoity, theft of motorcycles usually, unlicensed pistol possession, and then uske alawa about 20% were also arrested on possession of drug charges. Education के मुतालिक तकरीबन 25% बच्चों ने हमें बताया कि वो कभी स्कूल या मदरसा नहीं गए पढ़ने. जिन 30% बच्चों ने कहा कि वो स्कूल में पढ़ते हैं, they all said कि वो मजबूरी से हमें छोड़ना पड़ा क्योंकि घर की ज़रूरियात नहीं पूरी हो रही थी, and उनके वालिदैन ने उनसे कहा कि आप that the kid needs to get a job. Employment और income के हवाले से we discovered कि गिरफ्तारी के टाइम पे 149 बच्चों में से 127 की नौकरियां थी, which means the vast majority of them were employed, which means कि obviously कि उनके अरेस्ट के बाद से उनकी पूरी फैमिली की जो finances थी उन पे नुकसान हुआ based on the loss of the child's income. 35% of children reported an income of below the poverty line, यानी कि 10,000 महीने की आमदनी. And about 40 to maybe 45% were in the middle income range, यानी कि 10 से 15,000 महीने की आमदनी. A majority of the children also told us that their families would struggle on a monthly basis to afford basic household expenditures such as, you know, khana pina, bijli, pani, gas. You know, a lot of them express कि हम अस्पताल नहीं जाते because, you know, cannot afford to pay for those types of services, and so on. The other thing is कि a good 50% of the children admitted कि वो मंशियात इस्तेमाल करते हैं on a regular basis. This was sort of a big finding, and we were actually surprised that they were admitting this to us, because usually इस किस्म का जब research होता है we had, in terms of our own literature reviews, etc. This isn't something that is frequently said. So this was a surprising finding for us that it was being so readily admitted to us. बच्चों और वालिदैन की बातों से ये वाज़ेह हो रहा था कि ड्रग एडिक्शन ने ख़ानदानी रिश्तों को काफ़ी नुकसान पहुंचाया. Children had experienced, and this came through a lot in our qualitative findings, a very high degree of violence in the home, to the point of being completely desensitized to the violence. कि अगर वालिदैन से एक दो चमाट चपेट लग जाएं, this was not even considered violence in the eyes of the children. वालिदैन की usually एक ही कहानी होती थी, which was कि बच्चा ठीक था, बच्चा बहुत अच्छा था, वालिदैन की बहुत मदद करता था, he was a great kid, लेकिन फिर वो बुरी सोबत में पड़ गया, and उसके दोस्तों ने essentially उसे मुकम्मल तौर पे बिगाड़ दिया. One of the things that I experienced while doing this research, in addition to obviously the empathy and sympathy that you feel for the children, I found myself extremely sympathetic to the plight of the parents as well, because zyadatar what they would tell us, you could tell कि वो generally नाराज थे, मायूस थे, and they were very frustrated because there was the sense कि ये जो बच्चा है ये बिल्कुल हमारे control से बाहर है. One mother was, on the verge of tears when explaining that she just didn't know what to do with her son to make him stop taking drugs. She said कि हमने प्यार से समझाया है, डांटा है, घर में बंद किया है, बाप से कहा है समझाओ, चचा से कहा है, मामू से कहा है, वो सुनता नहीं है, तो मैं क्या करूं मारने के अलावा, and this was sort of a sentiment that was not just expressed by one mother, but जहाँ drugs का मसला था, this is something that we would sort of hear repeatedly from parents. And one of the other interesting findings was because of this very entrenched dynamic, between children and parents, we saw that parents were actually seeing jail as a form of rehabilitation. एक माँ थी जिनसे हमारी बात हो रही थी, and her kid was in for drug possession. और वो यही हमसे कह रही थी कि वो घर में हालात इसके बहुत ख़राब थे, बहुत बुरी हालत थी बच्चे की, लेकिन शुक्र है जब से ये जेल गया है तो ये थोड़ा बहुत सुधर गया है. इसके अलावा, this is sort of a bit separate, this is not from the findings of this report, but हमने जब वकीलों से बात की है who have represented juveniles in pro bono proceedings, उनसे भी हमें ये सुनने की बात मिली है कि कभी कभार अगर बच्चे की जमानत हो जाए तो वालिदैन नाराज होते हैं कि आपने बच्चे को जेल से क्यों निकाला, he was actually doing better in jail. तो ये एक I would say कि अफसोस और तज्जुब की बात है जिस पे हमें शायद थोड़ा गौर करना चाहिए, because on one hand आपका कानून है जो आपसे कह रहा है कि बच्चे को जेल से बचाना है, जेल के माहौल में बच्चे का इसलाह नहीं हो सकता. But on the other, you have a state that has so utterly failed to provide any resources for families and children to alleviate poverty and curb drug addiction, कि आपके वालिदैन आपसे कह रहे हैं कि जेल का माहौल घर के माहौल से बेहतर है, because they have absolutely no concept के where do we get help for these things. And then in addition to this, there's also a lot of distrust of the state, right? In a couple of instances, even if a suggestion was given of possible facilities, there's this sense that we don't want to send our child here. In terms of future work that needs to be done, I would say with respect to child welfare and juvenile justice, I think we do need to emphasize the importance of numerous forms of social interventions prior to a child being arrested, rather than dealing with the problem afterwards, which has not been very effective. खैर इस रिसर्च में और बहुत पहलू पेश आए, लेकिन ये हमारी फाइंडिंग्स की एक समरी है, and I'm sure we can discuss these further as the conversation continues.
No, that's great. Thank you for comprehensively summarizing your findings in such short time. Valerie, I want to get your opinion on the reflections that Jauziya has made. In terms of, we will talk about the responses of the justice system later on, but just the factors, the socio-legal and economic factors that lead to, juvenile, criminal activity. आप उसको किस तरह से देखती हैं? What do you think are the key components, some of whom which Josie has also highlighted? What are those in your opinion?
मेरा है जो कंपोनेंट जो बच्चों को लीड करते हैं ना क्रिमिनलिटी की तरफ से वो काफी यूनिवर्सल है बेसिकली जोजिया ने कहा ना कि काफी अक्सरियत बच्चे मेरा ख्याल है जो इन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विद लॉ थे उन्होंने वो बता दिया कि वो उनके सॉरी छोटी उम्र से वो तशद्दुद फेस किया या विटनेस किया to the point of being desensitized और ये वाला नुक्ता मेरे लिए बहुत खासूसी वाला है क्योंकि इंटरनेशनल रिसर्च डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करते हैं कि जब आप as a child तशद्दुद फेस किया या विटनेस किया या as a teenager तो फिर वो पॉसिबिलिटी बढ़ती है आप गलत तरफ जाने के लिए so basically the fact of having experienced or witnessed violence as a child and especially as a teenager definitely multiplies the chances of you turning into a violent person later on. And जब आप लोग जुवेनाइल को जिक्र करते हैं मेरा है ये ज़हन में रखना पड़ेगा कि न्यूरोलॉजी एक बहुत खास वाला साइंस है जो कि उसकी तरफ देखना पड़ेगा. The front part of your brain, the cortex, which conditions your capacity to plan, to program, and therefore to premeditate and to understand everything, is not finally formed between the age before the age, so you're 20 to 25. ना एक margin हो जाते. So if on one side एक तरफ से आप इतने तशद्दुद देख रहे हैं या एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं कि एक डिसेंसिटाइजेशन प्रोसेस चलता है और फिर दूसरी तरफ आपकी न्यूरोलॉजिकल एंड फिजियोलॉजिकल कैपेसिटीज भी लिमिटेड है ना वो गलत और अच्छी को फर्क समझने के लिए तो फिर of course you are I would say an ideal target for falling in conflict with the law or for being, this is also another element, exploited by adults who know very much how to use children to commit crime. So ye wala dynamics which is purely I would say mental health one is an essential one. और जब जोजिया कहती है कि ये prevention की तरफ जाने पड़ेगा, I insist and I repeat और मैं 20 दफा करूँगी मेरा ये हमारे आखिरी breath तक कि promoting child protection at an early age is one of the best way to prevent children from falling into further criminality later on. Child justice and juvenile justice starts with prevention at an early age, starts with child protection at an early age. Yeah. Otherwise, from a socio-economic perspective, we know it all. It's not new. The majority of children in conflict with the law वो गरीब family से आ रहा है. उनकी access to legal aid भी कमजोर हो जाएगा इस वजह से. उनकी resilience भी कमजोर हो जाएगा और जब state apparatus missing है जो कि again is a universal issue especially for deprived families तो फिर आपकी rehabilitation या diversion का options limited हो जाएंगे. So the state response at an early age of criminality and even before anything happens to the child to support the family is important. और family support के साथ भी होना चाहिए. I mean, I'm sure you will also see कि जो बच्चे इस family से आ रहा है बहुत ही है बच्चे. आपने खुद कहा laborers वाला बच्चे हैं. आप मुझे बताइए कि everything is interconnected. If we talk about child protection, it means कि family planning, fighting child labor, fighting child exploitation, ये सारी चीज ही हो जाते हैं child protection के अंदर and we further protect children from being again used or exposed to unhealthy practices or mahal.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Zara, a similar question for you, as a litigator who has worked on these issues for many years. आपके ख्याल के अंदर जो underlying issues हैं for these different socio-economic, vulnerabilities which are leading to, children, juveniles actually committing such criminal activities. आपके ख्याल से वो क्या ऐसी चीजें हैं which are the most striking or most relevant in this area?
Thank you for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be a part of such brilliant company. So, answering your question, there are a lot of social and economic reasons, a lot of which have already been laid out by Josiah as well as Valerie. सबसे पहला ये होता है राइट टू एजुकेशन की जो बात हम करते हैं. बच्चों को आप एजुकेट नहीं करोगे, दे आर गोइंग टू गेट इनटू अदर काइंड ऑफ हीनस क्राइम्स. Again, parents भी educated नहीं होते most of the time, especially when you talk crimes are committed, right? So आपकी education सबसे पहला, that's the biggest problem that we have now. Sin, for example, has the right to free education, free and compulsory education act भी है हमारी 2013 की, लेकिन issue यही होता है कि awareness नहीं होती. As Georgia has rightfully mentioned कि बच्चे पढ़ते पढ़ते कहते कि अब हमें कमाना है या हमें किसी तरीके से कोई सोर्स ऑफ इनकम लाने घर में. पेरेंट्स फोर्स करते हैं बच्चों को कि एजुकेशन पे जितना हमें एम्फेसिस देना चाहिए वो होता नहीं है. सो रिसेंटली देयर वाज अ केस, और 5 बच्चे 14 साल की उम्र से नीचे थे. देयर एज वाज यंगर देन 14 इयर्स, और वो क्रिस्टल मेथ इस्तेमाल भी कर रहे थे और बेच भी रहे थे. अब उनके वालिदैन, उन बच्चों के खिलाफ चार्जेस हुए. उनके जो वालिदैन हैं वो उन्होंने उनको चेन्स में लॉकअप किया, उनको रखा अपने घर में कि हम उनको चेन से बांधेंगे, इसी तरीके से वो सही हो जाएंगे, उनकी एडिक्शन खत्म हो जाएगी. अगर पेरेंट्स वो हैड सम सॉर्ट ऑफ आइडिया कि क्या करना है आगे जाके, या अगर हमारे जो अथॉरिटीज हैं, जो चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन सर्विसेज हैं, हम जो कहते हैं एज वैलेरी मेंशन द चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन सर्विसेज, हमारी एक एक्ट है जिसके तहत चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन सिंध की एक्ट 2011 की, उससे चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन सर्विसेज आर इन प्ले. वी हैव डेल्ट विद देम. लेकिन क्या अवेयरनेस है? क्या किसी को पता है कहाँ कॉल करना है, किसको, who to reach out to, how to get help for your child if for example they are वो मुलविस हो या क्राइम्स में या ड्रग अब्यूज में या whatever it may be. Unfortunately ये है नहीं हमारे पास, वो एक्सेस नहीं है, वो अवेयरनेस नहीं है.
I feel that there is increasingly a trend of just criminalizing poverty, and I think that some of the child beggary initiatives are a bit problematic in that respect, because from what I can understand, you're not solving the problem by picking up a child and taking them to a thana or depositing them at a center, because again it comes back to the issue of no long-term sustainable resources. And also possibly not dealing with the root causes of the problem, which is why the child wouldn't be begging if the child had other things to do. So this is something I'm actually very curious about. कि ये जो initiatives हैं, इसमें how is it possible to sort of either improve upon them or come up with something that is a little bit more sustainable than criminalizing people who are essentially the most vulnerable and don't have any other means available to them.
So very valid question, very valid point, Georgia. देखिए ये हम करते हैं that when we talk about this 1121 access for example, तो मैं आपको जरा process के through लेके जाती हूँ. If someone sees a child beggar on the streets, we call 1121. इसके through basically वहाँ थाना वहाँ लगता है, or wherever district that the closest police station belongs to, वहाँ से जाके उन बच्चों को उठाया जाता है. Child protection services are supposed to be informed and they're supposed to come in at that thana जहाँ ये register होती है report, और बच्चा वहाँ लेके जाया जाता है. उसके बाद what we're trying to access at that time is that we're not trying to put the child in jail, क्योंकि आजकल अक्सर बेशतर ये होता है कि 3,000 रुपए देके 4,000 रुपए देके जमा जाती है and that's that. What we are aiming towards is कि बच्चा को आप लेके आते हो, उनके जो पीछे माँ बाप हैं या जो गैंग्स हैं जिनकी एक्चुअल इन्वॉल्वमेंट होती है, जिनकी वजह से वो बच्चे स्ट्रीट्स पे आते हैं, उनको पकड़ना.
I think what Zara was trying to explain, okay, is that I think there is a problem, but I see what she wants to explain. I think what she meant was that what the state is trying to do is basically to rescue the children from the streets and then start identifying the exploiters behind the children, or the neglecting parents behind the children, and then what the law proposes is essentially criminalize those people. Okay, now I think what we need to look at when we look at those bakery operations, I also have a strong reservation about. First, I think there is a conceptual issue behind that. The children who are on the streets doing bakery are not criminals. they are victims. They are exploited children. This is called commercial exploitation. This is called modern slavery. This is unconstitutional, and this is in many cases forbidden by the law under a certain age in any case. All right. Now, you also have a vagrancy acts in many provinces that criminalizes the fact of begging. So, I agree with you, Josiah, this is a form of criminalizing poverty, but we also need to be aware of the fact that the people behind those children are not always poor. Actually, you also have very well organized criminal gangs who are basically simply trafficking and then commercially exploiting those children. And so when you look at the phenomenon of street children, I think the problem we are having is that it's a complex phenomenon where internal trafficking as well as commercial and possibly sexual exploitation comes into play, in addition to child protection laws. So I think this kind of work can only be done via a multi-stakeholders approach, where the social welfare department and the child protection authorities work in close coordination with the police and to some extent with the security agencies, because years ago we piloted that in Murray, for example, and we needed the support of the agency to trace back, help us trace back the families of the children and also identify to which extent those children had been internally trafficked. We had a sample of around 1,489 children, and I think 15% of those were internally trafficked children. The rest were neglected and exploited by the parents or a family member. Okay, and so we need there is a criminal component in that beggary dimension that needs to be taken care of, and in my view, more via a Pakistan Penal Code or an internal trafficking law or a child protection law approach rather than the Vagrancy Act. Okay. And then secondly, there is also an overall pedagogical approach that may be articulated along with the Child Protection Act, or to some extent even via the Vagrancy Act, if we deal with the parents or the adults behind that, where you need to hold the parents responsible for what they need to do or not do as the parents towards their children. We know very poor families who still do not send their children begging in the street. You also have many of those in Pakistan. All right, we need to be fair and honest. All poor families are not exploiting their children. All right, so while poverty and socioeconomic inequalities are real factors behind beggary, this is certainly not the only one. And we need to hold the parents responsible. Now, in addition to this, I agree with you, and I think CPWB, in a very limited manner, kind of piloting it or initiating it when they were giving food ration package, I think, to the parents of those children after reintegrating them with the family. The problem is that we actually need a full rehabilitation and reintegration package and monitoring package by the social welfare authority towards that family to monitor the family socioeconomic empowerment and the child reintegration process in that case. And that means also very often, frankly speaking, banking and capitalizing on women economic empowerment, because also international research would show you that when you give money to the woman, she would reinvest it into the family. So you can have that kind of conditioning, and monitored example. I think the Peshawar Child Court piloted it, where parents were brought and called into court, given one warning saying, listen, the child will go back with you. You need to register that child in school. You come back after a month and you show me the registration process of the child. Next month, the school report of the child had to be there, and some child protection officers were supposed to monitor the family to ensure that the child was not working anymore. This is absolutely feasible. We need to have the mechanism, the SOPs, and some resource allocations to do that.
Right. Josie, I want you to comment on something that Valerie, mentioned. She touched on a few very interesting themes. One of them being, understanding the child offender as a victim and linking it with structural violence and inequality, whether it's violence at home or experience with law enforcement agencies or, begging child beggary units. How do you see this in terms of the approach which the child protection authorities are taking in terms of addressing, criminal activities committed by juveniles. Is that an approach thing, or is there something more to it?
I think that, well, first, I just want to, something that you said, Valerie, reminded me of something that the children also talked about a lot in the qualitative interviews that we did in this report. आप यही बात कर रही थी कि this automatic linking of ghurbat with crime, is something that we need to be wary of. And, we would hear that from the children themselves, because one of our questions was कि आपको क्यों लगता है कि बच्चे जुर्म की तरफ क्यों जा रहे हैं? And it was interesting because all of the children were very upfront in pointing out that it is not just poor people who commit crimes. They said कि जब अमीर लोग करते हैं तो वो उनके पास पैसे होते हैं और रिश्वत देके निकल आते हैं. So that, I think, is actually an incredibly important point. And I think that even in terms of framing this whole discussion, we need to sort of recognize the fact that law in this context is often seen as an instrument of oppression. And so you will only see a certain class of people in jails. That does not mean that is the only class of people committing crimes. And so I think it is really important to acknowledge that just at the outset. Umar, to respond to what you were saying, I think one of the problems, and I would love to hear Zara's thoughts on this as well, I think is the juvenile justice regime and the child welfare regime are sort of seen legally as very two separate regimes. So the Juvenile Justice System Act is dealing very specifically with children after they are in the system. When it comes to child welfare, those are seen quite separately. So aap agar Social Welfare Department ya Sindh Child Protection Authority ko bhi dekhein, internally bhi there are questions about this that we've seen in our engagement with that forum, in terms of कि आप अगर एक juvenile को देखें, एक मुल्जिम बच्चा, are you going to say कि मुल्जिम बच्चा victim नहीं है? Right? They are a victim of various circumstances, whatever they may be. One of the things that we identified repeatedly is drug use. So, if a child, by virtue of coming into contact with the law, is automatically shifted over from the child welfare framework to the juvenile justice framework, so I think that automatically is one of the problems, that these two things are seen as separate sort of parallel tracks that don't intersect.
Right. Zara, the distinction that Jauziya talked about in terms of the child welfare system and the juvenile justice system, in your experience, how do you see these two regimes addressing essentially what is, one issue, albeit it's the type of approach that, one takes. So how do you see them intersecting in terms of addressing, issues of juvenile, criminal activities? Because there's a poverty alleviation angle, and there's the other retributive or punitive angle. So how do you see them intersecting?
So that's a very good question. I just have to backtrack a little bit, and sort of so I can form the basis of my argument, and that is कि देखिए जब the example I was giving earlier before I was cut off was कि अगर कोई आता है कभी police station पर, there are child protection services are involved, बच्चे ने अगर crime commit किया भी होता है या फिर दस बजे में या drugs की बात होती है, so we try कि जो अगर mafias हो या parents हो या जो भी हो, who is the caretaker of the child depending on the child's age, हम उनको we try not to have any FIRs registered or any को victim की तरह नहीं देखते. हम उनके जो guardians होते हैं, जो वालिदैन होते हैं, उनके खिलाफ करते हैं कि because there are no laws. For example, if you talk about beggary, for example, in question, anti-beggary laws तो नहीं है अभी, right? So what we do is कि हम penal code में देखते हैं drug abuse, child drug abuse, कि बच्चों को आप drugs दे रहे हैं, any sort of section is I know this is not the best approach, लेकिन जो अभी जो हमारा system in place है, it's not the best system, right? And it needs to improve drastically. तो हम क्या करते हैं कि we try that we sort of tell those sections, or we sort of explain to the police कि आप ऐसे इस case को दर्ज करें, ना कि no one is let off scot free, not especially someone who is not taking care of a child, or someone who is not in terms, especially in terms of beggary, कि उनको अपने बच्चों को वो streets पे भेज रहे हैं या माफिया भेज. So we try and get to the root cause instead of blaming the children or putting the children. Saying that, it depends on the nature of the crime also. ये मैं ज़्यादा बेगरी के बारे में बात कर रही थी, लेकिन unfortunately the child protection services they are in play. की rules of business हर वक्त हम जब भी डिबेट करते हैं इस पर, हमारी जो अथॉरिटी है, जो the parliamentary committee that I'm a part of also, we always say that उनके the act is there are offices in place, but they do not know their role properly. They don't know exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, अगर हम welfare of child की बात ही करते हैं, अगर for example a child is in a abusive household, or a child is not, whatever the issue might be at home, अगर वो child कहीं जाके report भी करता है अपने आप को, especially with a girl, and I've had recent cases regarding this. आपके पास 2 government owned panagas हैं. I know Georgia had spoken about the the other shelters जो available हैं, लेकिन सिर्फ 2 हैं जो state run है. उनमें से एक no one, they won't house children who are under the age of 9 or the age of 7 depending. तो फिर आप, so how are you helping those children if अगर उनके लिए आपके पास shelters ही नहीं है, उनको अगर एक abusive household हो गया या एक ऐसी environment होगी जो conducive नहीं है उनके लिए, तो how do you remove them from that? Where do you take them? You then turn to private NGOs, etc. But the thing is, government क्या कर रही है इसके लिए? Again, child protection क्या कर रही है? Child protection की जो act है, उसकी rules of business जो हैं, वो अभी तक define ही नहीं हुए हैं. They talk about committees, we talk about managing committees, but there's nothing there. So, how does one draw that distinction? That coming back to the question that you asked, how do we can talk about all the issues that are there, and they are highlighted very well, Georgia and also in the report. But the problem is कि अगर हमारे पास acts आती भी हैं, तो हम उनको follow through नहीं करते. An act is one thing. Creating awareness upon it, उसके बाद उसके rules of business बनाना, उसको further करना, trying and helping the children in the manner that one can, वो होता ही नहीं. You see, there's no follow-up process, and that is the main problem that we face. Even in education, that's the problem. Even in education, जैसे हम कहते हैं, I mentioned the 2013 Act. We talk about free education for children under the age of 16. कितने go school हैं all throughout state. We've been through them ourselves. We also work with the Seva Children Foundation, और उसके through भी हमने जाके देखा है कि नहीं, half of the schools are go schools. So you see, implementation is a huge problem, and that is something that, and there's no follow-up process, and that is the main issue that that I feel that needs to be addressed as well.
Right. Valerie, I would like you to respond to this, in terms of, the issues that Zara has highlighted, that there seems to be some sort of a policy or an implementation gap when it comes to child protection services and child welfare systems compared to, for example, what the juvenile justice system is doing. So do you think it is an issue of policy, law, implementation? What is the real underlying factor here?
So for sure, what Zara is saying is 500% true, right? You have a lack of awareness. You do not have, first of all, we do not have child protection policy. I mean, let's say child protection guidelines at a national level and then provincial child protection policy. ये मौजूद नहीं है. जब तक नहीं होगा, हम लोग confuse हो जाएंगे कि किस तरह जाएंगे. सबसे पहले तो ये हमारे लिए बहुत जरूरी है और एक बहुत challenge है. दूसरी, लेकिन उसके अलावा मुझे लग रहा है कि when there is a will, there is a way also. ये हमारे ज़बान के, और स्पेशली पाकिस्तान में, ओके, एक तरफ से हम लोग कर सकते हैं कि बताएंगे कि देखिए बेगरी, सिंध में बेगरी लॉ नहीं है, ठीक है, लेकिन सिंध में आर्टिकल सेक्शन 328A of the Pakistan Penal Code, which is about cruelty to a child, is applicable. Sindh में section of Pakistan Penal Code related to forced labor is applicable. Having children in the street begging is basically forced labor. This is basically cruelty to a child. And while I'm supporting empowering, not assistance, but empowering welfare approach for parents who need help to improve their livelihood and their socioeconomic status, I'm also a strong advocate of taking your responsibility. You have a legal, moral, and to a large extent, religious duty to take care of the children you produce. और ये, I'm sorry, but कोई argument उसके खिलाफ में नहीं मानेंगे. You did them, you need to. हमारे बहुत ज़्यादा काफ़ी cases हैं जो कि gender barriers की वजह से you literally sacrifice the child's life and put that child in the street rather than having, you know, the parents taking their responsibilities and working accordingly. You can articulate your professional activities, your what you call income generating activities obligation in a socio-cultural manner. You know, you have home-based or whatever. I also understand that this is difficult, but then, you know, you also have family planning. तो ये सारा अगाई जो आप जिक्र करती है ना जरा, जब तक सारे root causes जो जोजिया ने initially mentioned किया, address नहीं हो गया, we're not going to get there. I mean, right now, the narrative which is saying, बेचारी बहुत ज्यादा बच्चे हैं, तो फिर इसी वजह से बच्चे को बेचते हैं ना, begging करने के लिए, हम क्या करें? I'm sorry, that's not all right. We are not allowed to sacrifice children just because as parents, we are not taking our responsibilities. और फिर उसके अलावा, as the state, of course, आपकी बात बिल्कुल दुरुस्त है कि वो teen child protection act के बाद rules होना चाहिए, child protection policy होना चाहिए. Also another aspect, you know, that when you were, sorry, so, Josia, when you were mentioning the distinction between the separation between the justice system and the social welfare system. It's not actually so much like that in the Juvenile Justice System Act, and that's why this is a reformative approach. I think the current structure and the understanding of that is that, you know, ek taraf justice hai, dusri taraf social welfare. The JJ is actually envisaged a totally integrated mechanism. And if you, for example, read, I'll just take the example of KP. I would be interested to know what's the situation in STIM to that regard. The rules of business in KP, whenever the term rehabilitation is used, means that that domain is shifted to the social welfare department. So ye please check कीजिए कि STIM के लिए क्या हाल है. That would be of an interest actually. So what that led to, and that's very important for us, is that whenever we talk about establishing observation home, conducting diversion, right, or establishing rehabilitation home, the jurisdiction of the observation home and the rehabilitation home, according to the rules of business of KP, will have to be shifted to the social welfare department and not the home department anymore. Ye wala shift is a huge paradigm shift जो कि लोग के अंदर reflected है और जो कि rehabilitation और integration के लिए फायदा करेगा. So I think we need to study that a bit further and see how we can do that. And otherwise, you've got Zara जो आपने बता दिया ना, multi-stakeholders approach. Now you talk about holistic approach, Melanie. It's again a multi-stakeholders dimension. Who said that you could not have psychologists and social workers in the jail? Who said in the jail? Oh my God, sorry, in the detention facility, in the rehabilitation center, as per law. Even if it is for some difference into the rules of business under the authority of the Home Department, फिर भी इस approach के through state multi-stakeholders के through via coordination will, you know, transform the approach towards that child.
Right. Josia, how do you make sense of all of this?
Just that's the point that you made, Valerie, about the Juvenile Justice System Act. I 100% agree with that. I think the whole point of that act is कि हम अपना focus जो है वो जरा shift करें from punishment to rehabilitation. And in terms of, you know, the participation of the social welfare department, absolutely. I mean, a social welfare officer is supposed to be, you know, a member of the Juvenile Justice Committee. It's either a probation officer or social welfare officer. In the context of Sindh, you know, the social welfare department, just in general, it's a very under-resourced, understaffed department. When it comes to these committees, you know, for a long time, Khair Act 2018 में पास हुआ. I believe कि पिछले साल एक public interest litigation हुई थी by an organization that works specifically with children and child welfare issues in a particular community on activating the committees. 2019 और नहीं 2019 और 20 के दरमियान बेसिकली कमिटीज जो हैं वो नोटिफाई हो गई हैं फ्रॉम द होम डिपार्टमेंट, बट व्हेन यू go into the courts and you talk to the magistrates and you talk to the district and sessions judges of each division, the committees, कुछ लोगों को तो पता भी नहीं है कि कमिटी क्या है, ये कैसे चलती है, which goes back to Zara's whole point of implementation, right? She was talking about it from a perspective of social welfare and CPUs, etc. But the same problem applies in the juvenile justice system. The judges aren't aware of the committees. Abhi recently, we are working with a couple of the districts to see if we can help implement, get the committee started, because there is this gap between the notification and the actual functioning of the committee. So that is a huge, and I think that at least in terms of the juvenile justice system, that's sort of one of the biggest challenges, because इस system की जो दो main तरीके हैं of keeping children out of jail, खैर तीन main तरीके, एक तो आपकी bail है जो already हो रही है, which is not new. The next is probation, जिस पे थोड़ा बहुत काम होना है, but again उसकी एक system already existent है जिसे बेहतर करना है. And the third is diversion. Ab diversion में the role of social welfare, this is something that didn't exist before, the concept of diversion, and there has, and the social welfare department and the probation department actually, which are supposed to work hand in hand when it comes to this issue, that is not happening on the ground. इसके अलावा, even if we're talking specifically just even of the legislative landscape, Sindh में the Sindh Prison and Correction Facilities Act जो 2019 में पास हुआ, even that उसके जो rules बन गए हैं actually, which were notified last year, those have also, even though we're again going back into the juvenile, the justice system as opposed to the welfare system, the rules in that actually envision the creation of an entire directorate of rehabilitation. उस directorate का पूरा mandate ही ये है कि within the constraints obviously of a prison system जहाँ लोग आते हैं और जाते हैं और जमानत के बाद they're out again, तो obviously वो आपके sentenced or unsentenced prisoners में that distinction exists in terms of what rehabilitative options you can provide in the context of a jail. But this directorate is meant to essentially take over that responsibility. जो अभी ad hoc चीजें हो रही हैं, where NGOs etc. will come in and do certain rehabilitative programs, that role is now being institutionalized in a way it hasn't before. Of course, ये rules जो हैं ये अभी I mean they've just come out, so there's work being done right now in the Sindh Prison Department to train the officers and to have these sort of high-level meetings to try and get the directorate up and functioning. So I do think कि progress is being made. It's just कि I think कि हमारे सब sector में the progress tends to be made a lot faster on paper, and then moving that towards implementation, as both Zara and Valerie have pointed out, is where the real challenge lies.
So I just like to add one thing to how Jose said कि the magistrates are not well versed or well aware of exactly what कि कानून क्या है या कानून की implementation कैसे करनी है etc. That is the main issue. कि हमारे पास just to add on कि judicial trainings होनी बहुत लाजमी है. We need to have trainings at 3 or 4 different levels, right? And this is again, if we talk about the juvenile justice system, or we talk about the social welfare system, police stations, so police officers, child protection service officers, magistrates, they all need to be trained in accordance to the specific laws or specific systems that are in place, because उनको अंदाजा नहीं है या they're not aware yet of it. So that's also something which is very important. If the training नहीं होगी, if the awareness नहीं होगी, nothing can actually, again, it's all on paper, and then the implementation part fails or is very slow.
Right. As we move on to the latter part of this discussion, Juvenile Justice System Act की बारे में बात हुई, आप लोगों ने implementation capacity के issues highlight किए. In terms of the act itself, I would like you to analyze it for the issues that we have been highlighting. कि जो convergence जिसकी बात हो रही है कि welfare system और जो justice system जो है उनके अंदर कोई गुंजाइश है जितनी convergence होनी चाहिए, and is the act playing any sort of a positive role in making that happen? Valerie, would you like to start?
मेरा ख्याल है ये एक्ट का रोल बहुत बड़ा है वाकई, बिकॉज कम से कम एक फ्रेमवर्क देता है ना इस इंटरेक्शन के लिए और रोल्स एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के लिए। लेकिन जरा की बात ठीक है, जब तक रूल्स भी नोटिफाई नहीं किया, ये रोल्स और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आप कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं, पर्टिकुलरली ये रूल्स का ड्यूटी है ना एक्सप्लेन करने का, और स्पेशली एसओपी की तरह से और फिर मॉनिटरिंग फ्रेमवर्क की तरह से। लेकिन मुझे लग रहा है कि as Josia was saying, एक तरफ से पेपर पे है और दूसरी तरफ पे वो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की तरफ जाने पड़ेगा। जब तक when we talk about capacity building, it's not only about knowing the law, it's about understanding the concept behind the legislation and translating it. जो हमेशा जब आप कानून का जिक्र करते हैं या कॉन्सेप्ट का जिक्र करते हैं ना, जजेस के साथ या मैजिस्ट्रेट के साथ या सिविल जजेस के साथ, वो करते हैं, लेकिन हम लोग ऐसे नहीं करते हैं। और हम लोग 20 दफा करें कि भूल जाए आप कैसे करते हैं, अभी देखिए कानून क्या कहते हैं। सो ये बिहेवियरल चेंज की मसला भी है कि हमारे पहले का प्रैक्टिस क्या है, अभी किस तरफ से जाने पड़ेगा, एंड देन हाउ डू यू मॉनिटर दैट। सो आई थिंक what the National Judicial Policy Making Committee did in June 2019, when they actually decided to partner, and that's just an example, but it could be replicated, with Group Development Pakistan to pilot the chat code, pilot the capacity building process. And I mean capacity building, not training. No? That means training, technical coaching, mentoring, and then monitoring as well. And then based on the finding and the सबूत जो आ रहा है ना इस evaluation के बाद, वो फिर agenda further लेते हैं। Josia, you mentioned something very important. You talked about the Juvenile Justice Committee. जो आखिरी feedback, and I'm talking about March, हमारे साथ share हो गया judges से, team से, Judicial Academy के अंदर, उन्होंने कहा कि सारे session judges नाम को शेयर किया होम डिपार्टमेंट के साथ, लेकिन अभी तक वो कमिटीज नोटिफाई नहीं हुआ। तो ये प्लीज चेक करने पड़ेगा, बिकॉज दिस कुड वेरी मच एक्सप्लेन व्हाई द मैजिस्ट्रेट आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दिस कमिटी। जब तक नोटिफिकेशन होम डिपार्टमेंट से नहीं आएंगे, एंड इट कैन बी द डिस्ट्रिक्ट कमिश्नर ऑफ द एरिया, तो फिर वो कमिटी ऑपरेशनलाइज नहीं हो सकेंगे। तो ये please check कीजिए, and then according to this we can go further. I think in sin this is the issue, because जबरदस्त court decision की वजह से अभी सिर्फ enforcement की तरफ जाने पड़ेगा, and then we could make a difference.
उसमें Valerie, just to respond to that, notifications हो गई हैं from home, but they're not nobody's named in the notification. उन्होंने generically members basically जो act में लिखा हुआ है वो notification में लिखा हुआ है. So, and yes, the statute does not specify that names need to be put in there. So for instance, we're recently working with one of the judges who has then issued a letter to the Home Department with the names to say कि re-notify it with the names, because उसके बगैर फिर वो आगे हम बढ़ नहीं सकते. But it's a matter of working, as you know, with each individual district and sessions judge. Some are very aware of it. There are others who don't know much about it. And so we're sort of in the process of doing that and seeing how we can. इसमें the other thing is कि I feel कि सिंध में कम से कम one of the main problems is the fact that we don't have rules. अगर आपके पास rules नहीं हैं, so it's really impossible to come up with procedures in the actual day-to-day functioning of these committees and what their SOPs should be and what their processes and procedures are. Because without the input of the various departments who are even part of these processes in going into the rules, it's people essentially at this point we just kind of have to make things up in the absence of those. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I think somebody earlier was talking about competing priorities, and I think ye ek masla hai, which in the past couple of years, in the past year and a half or so with COVID, and with some of the other things that have happened, I think a government ki priority is also in different places. And of course, I think this varies from province to province. But this is sort of not, seen as a top priority issue to move forward. Obviously, jab committees notification ke baad, when they start meeting, there needs to be some form of accountability as well, right? And I think that is the sort of thing that would come from possibly the High Court, ke iski meetings ki minutes ho. Right now there's no framework for any of that. कि ठीक है, जब हम मिलेंगे तो हम मिलके क्या करेंगे? How do we structure these? where's the information coming from, and then obviously act के अंदर जो diversion के मुख्तलिफ तरीके laid out हैं, in terms of apologizing to the complainant or participating in some community programs. On the ground, and this goes back to these sort of two parallel tracks of welfare and juvenile justice. Agar on the ground these measures don't exist, these community programs don't exist, so आपकी फिर diversion committee भी काफी कम कर पाएगी, because a lot of it then links back to the welfare system, which is essentially in many ways sort of non-existent on the ground.
Right. Zara, would you like to chip in?
Absolutely. I think that's what Georgia and both Valerie said makes a lot of sense. And I think that wohi baat hai, at the end of the day, if we do not have those, different programs in place or different sort of, again, I know I keep on harping on implementation and on rules, because that is what I think is the most important thing of it in this whole discussion, that, we have laws, we have rules, we have laws in place, we have acts in place, but then what? What's the next step, right? And even if rules are made, then how long will it take for them to be implemented? If, for example, the program Georgia has just spoken about, agar wo programs ki baat karte hain ki for children to be, to be involved in different kind of programs as diversion, etc. वो programs define kab honge? When will they come into play? Who's going to head what? How will you decide what to put what child into? There are a lot of questions that arise out of just the bare act being in front of you or in front of us, or even the rules being made. Uske baad kya? वो तो अभी बने नहीं हैं, but even then, so that's something that is, I keep on talking about it, because I think that's very vital. Jab tak we don't get to that part, just having an act is a great step, yes, but then what happens? So that is what I feel that we need to work on overall as a committee too.
Yeah, बिल्कुल. वक्त की कमी की वजह से we'll have to come to the end of the discussion. So I would like to go around the panel and have final thoughts on the way forward. काफी सारी बातें हुई कि conceptual clarity की भी कमी है. There's two parallel regimes. Welfare की regime अलग है, juvenile justice की regime अलग है. एक के अंदर policy और law के gaps हैं, एक के अंदर दूसरे enforcement और implementation के gaps हैं. So how do we go ahead from here? Georgia, perhaps you can start with you, and then Valerie, and then Zara.
Umar, I think we've sort of covered it, I think quite comprehensively. I think that it's the work on the ground that needs to happen. I think that what frequently happens is that the making laws on paper is great, but a lot of the times the laws don't really anticipate what the resource constraints on the ground are and what the attitudes of the people who are meant to implement these things are either. So for instance, हम rehabilitative framework की तरफ जा रहे हैं, लेकिन अगर आपके criminal justice system के सब actors ज़्यादातर सोचते हैं कि ये बच्चे जो हैं ये सुधर नहीं सकते और ये बिगड़े हुए हैं, which is actually, you hear these comments all the time. तो फिर आपके कागज पे बहुत खूबसूरत अल्फाज हैं, but ultimately जिन लोगों के mindset में तब्दीली आने के बगैर कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता. So I think that there's work to be done on multiple fronts. The implementation front we've spoken about. I think the psychological changing people's mindsets is incredibly important. That comes from some of the stuff that Zara was talking about in terms of training and awareness sessions. I think linkages between the two systems, work needs to be done on that front. And it's a large task with lots of different components that need to be looked at and moved forward simultaneously.
Right, Valerie?
To complement what Georgia has said, I think the child protection policy is a must because it would lay out the roadmap for the multiple components way forward. Number one, with a set of safeguarding standards and priorities, which could be further translated into an action plan with clear indicators and deadlines. I believe in that because I think it motivates you. And the second part, I think that what has been initiated by the NGFPNC to date, and which has been documented, needs to be further communicated and shared with the stakeholders, because it's also to tell them, listen, status quo is not a fatality, and change is possible. And this is the progress that has already been achieved, and we need to do more. I think we also need that to maintain the political buy-in and the state motivation to do better. And that kind of motivational element is very important. Votre associé et maintenant mettez comme les sustainability lié. Or मेरा है ये communication strategy को बात है ये बहुत ही उसके ऊपर focus देना चाहिए.
ठीक है, thank you, Zara.
I think most of my points have already been said by both Josie and Valerie, but I'll just repeat them in point form. Sensitization, training, implementation, awareness, as well as maybe even having pilot studies to see exactly how the way forward should be. And yeah, I think that's the, in a nutshell, that's exactly what we require.
Perfect. On that note, we have come to an end of the session. I found it really meaningful. There's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be done. Keep following Legal Aid Society's social media pages for more such sessions. ये second episode है, इसके बाद और episodes भी आएंगी इंशाल्लाह. और जो report है जिसके बारे में हमने बात की, the one that Josie has worked on, वो हम इस video के साथ attach कर देंगे. So please do have a look at it and let us know if you have any comments or feedback. Thank you, Josia, Valerie, and Zara for taking out time and being on the session. It was wonderful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for